Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today as we discuss an introduction to the Kinetic user interface. Today we've got James Prather and Sam Plummer, who are going to be our subject matter experts. I'm Sue Brzee. I'm the marketing director here at 2W Tech. If at any time during today's presentations you have questions, please go ahead and send them through the questions box, and we'll get to them time permitting at the end. Sam, do you want to go ahead and flip to the next slide?
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
I was busy hitting admit all.
Yes, we'll just keep letting people in. We've got a big audience today. About 2W Tech. So if you're not familiar with us, we are one of Epicor's largest North American partners. We're one of Microsoft's most innovative partner, and we were also selected CRN's top 250 Pioneer Solution Provider for the 4th year in a row, something we're very, very proud of. We've got an extensive line card, as you can see everything listed there, but obviously we've been an Epicor partner for over 30 years. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Sam and James, and they're going to get started with today's content. Guys?
Hi, everybody, and welcome. Again, happy you were able to join us for a few minutes today. Our intention for the next 45 minutes or so is to just provide a high-level overview of what might be a little ambiguous to some, and that is specifically the Kinetic UI, which UI stands for user interface, and an alternate term for that, which is UX or user experience. But in any case, regardless of how you refer to it, really over the last 2.5 years or so, Epicor, I would argue probably for the first time in over 15 years, is really fundamentally presenting a new way for individual users to interact with the software. And that is specifically what we're here to present. That is the Kinetic user interface. And again, and we'll clarify some things about what it is and what it is not. So beginning with Kinetic 2021.1, which was general availability, I think about 2.5 years ago now, that was the first release of the product that is branded Kinetic ERP. And again, these share that word kinetic, but they really are two different things because there are elements of the Kinetic UI that were already being introduced before the Kinetic ERP was introduced. In other words, those of you that have been with the Epicor ERP for a while now, 10.2.500, 10.2.600, and 10.2.700 all had essentially preview elements, if you want to call it that, of the Kinetic UI that were present. And it's really over the last 2.5 years that this new user interface has been moving into the mainstream. And so, and we just want to distinguish the Kinetic UI from what we now call the classic UI. That is that both menu and home screen and general organization of an individual form. A good example, sales order entry. It's one everybody's familiar with. I would make the argument that if you were familiar with the sales order entry screen in Vista or Vantage 8.0 or 8.03 15 plus years ago, that user could easily make the transition to the classic UI or user interface style of that screen in 10.2.700, or even in the current releases of Kinetic, if that user chooses and that organization chooses to use the classic UI. So again, what we're distinguishing here is not the release level of the software per se, but actually a style of user interface. And to be clear, in today's Kinetic product, and we're a couple of days away for all you on-prem customers of the GA availability of Kinetic 2023.2. Those of you who are cloud deployed have probably already seen Kinetic 2023.2 in your cloud pilot environments. But in any case, all of you are aware that you still have a choice to run either the classic UI or the Kinetic UI. And James is here to really provide that initial overview for everybody and anybody about what are the benefits of transitioning to this Kinetic UI. So James, I'm going to let you take it from here. I believe you have a presentation including live demo for us.
I do. Thank you, Sam. And thank you, Sue. And good afternoon and good day, everyone that's joined us. My name is James Prather. I'm a sales engineer here at 2W Tech. My role is to present Epicor to prospects and existing customers when they are considering a change in systems or adding additional modules or making any alterations. And so my job here today is just to kind of take you through this Kinetic UI and just kind of walk through some of the changes. There's a lot to talk about, and I've got about 30 minutes or so. We want to leave some time at the end so we can do some Q&A, but I'll do my best to kind of walk through the basic layout and some of the features that are part of that. So at this point, what I'll do now, let me share my screen. And I will go ahead and turn my camera off as well, just so I can reserve some bandwidth. And, all right. Sue, how do we look? Everything coming across?
Yep, looks good.
Okay. All right, so the first thing I like to point out to anyone considering Epicor's new release is the fact that it is hardware agnostic. We're essentially contacting this software now through browsers as opposed to the PC client. And the goal was to eliminate hardware as an issue when it comes to managing your ERP. With a browser, you can bring it up on a tablet. It can be an Apple product. It could be an Android product. It could be a Microsoft OS, Linux. So we've eliminated one variable that has been problematic for customers over the course of software development. Now we support all of the major browsers. So I tend to use Chrome, but I've used Edge, Safari, all of your major Firefox, all of your major browsers, you should be able to open up and log into your software without any issue. What I've done is I have a couple of shortcuts that I use, and I click on my shortcut, and it just takes me right into the system. Now, I've already logged in a few times today, so it knows I'm working in it, so it didn't ask me for my password. But at that point, when you log in, it will ask for your user credentials, and then it'll open up to this screen here, which is defined as our home page, and you can see that here in the upper left. Essentially, what we have here is we have a navigation bar on the far left, and we have sort of a dashboard display of information and tools here on the right. And what I'd like to do with you folks today is just start from top to bottom, work my way down, and then we'll work our way from left to right. So currently on my home page, and as you can see, I've got this particular tab highlighted. This is my main dashboard. This is the one that opens every time I log in. But as you can see, I've got others that I can set up and navigate to whenever I need to focus in on that particular part of the business. So right below your home screen is a search tool. So some of us have enterprise search, some of us don't. But if you type in a set of characters, it can be alpha, it can be numeric. This happens to be a demonstration customer in my database. it's going to cycle through all of the tables within the system, and it's going to return to us all the records that it found where it sees that particular combination. In this example here, it's found 4 calls, 1 case, 1 customer, 91 invoices. This is one of my most common demo customers, so I use them quite often. And so you can filter through the results into that underlying table, and then you can see some of that information. We can also drill through this and open up the actual record itself. Another option available is here in the upper right, and that is to turn that view into more of a Excel spreadsheet view of information, rows and columns. You can also push information directly out of the tool into Excel and go from there and work on it additionally as needed. And it does take wildcards, so if you don't know the full detail of what you're looking for, maybe you just remember a portion of the part number or maybe the customer zip code, but you don't remember their ID, you can use different criteria and wildcards to narrow down the search and try to find what it is you're looking for. Below your search button is the actual menu. So the menu's here on the left. There's 3 tabs. Your main navigation menu is here all the way on the left, followed by a favorites and a recent. Recents will keep track of where you've been over the last 24 to 48 hours. So if you get called away and you lose track of where that record was or what part of the software you were in when you were making those changes, you can come back to your recents and you can see and navigate back to that area. Navigating back to the main menu, they've grouped it by functional area. So you have sales, service, production, materials, financial. Within that group, you'll find the actual modules. For financial, we have assets, AR, AP, currency management, general ledger. Opening up your module, you'll find your 3 groupings, your setup screens, your general operations, and your reports. Selecting one of those options, it'll actually push out from the side and show you all the reports, in this case, that are in that module. And if you want to add them to your favorites, you simply hit this star and it'll ask you which folder you'd like to put those in. And let's go ahead and put it in my financial folder. Or I can create in a new another folder if I choose to and save that. So now if I navigate back to my favorites and go into that financial, as you can see, I've got quite a few favorites in there. You'll see that advanced billing and deposit balance tool right there. General operations functions the same way, as well as your setup screens. Working our way down, this is Epicor Data Discovery. This is where we get these graphical representations of your data. There's a library of these that come with the system, some predefined common requests, if you will, that we've received over time that you can simply grab and add to your dashboard. In a lot of instances, I will take and make a copy of it. So I want to leave the original as is, and I'll add an underscore and then a additional name or ID that allows me to make changes to it and not have any impact on the original. And we'll talk more about this in just a bit when we start looking at the dashboard manipulation. Coming further down, you do have a help system that's now embedded. So it is context sensitive, so it knows that I'm on my home page. So it's gone out and it's grabbed all the videos, articles, and guided learning tools that we offer for that particular screen. And as you navigate through the system, it'll recognize you're on an order entry screen or you're on a job entry screen, and it'll then filter for those particular learning tools as well. You also have a help and support center here at the bottom. We can navigate to the Epicor Learning Center over at the Epicor website. So there's an additional area where you can go to get additional information on the software. We can request support. We can manage our account with Epicor, and we can submit additional ideas, things that we think, changes that we think might benefit Epicor and the user groups and so forth. One feature I do like to point out is this field level help. This small little checkbox here will turn on a question mark in the screens and the forms that we'll be looking at later, and it'll let me know what table and what field that particular data is living in. It comes in very, very handy if you have to build any sort of dashboard or a report of some sort, or maybe a BAQ query. It's a fantastic little tool to help narrow down and find the information you want quickly and get that particular tool, report, what have you, created and just deployed to your staff. We also have notification screens. So if you running reports or have other processes running in the background, you can see and access that here. And then lastly, here at the very bottom, we have the user information detail. So I happen to be in my Epicor USA company. I have others. You can switch, just simply pull down and choose a different company, or I can change sites within the same company or workstations. I can set keyboard shortcuts. So some of us are still very much keyboard driven. So you can define your shortcuts. And so that kind of help you navigate and minimize the amount of mouse work you have to do in order to manage your data and your records. And if your administrators give you the option, you can change your passwords and other settings that are available. So that is a basic rundown of the main interface here. And what I'd like to do now is talk a little bit about these dashboards. So what we're looking at here are different objects that you can add to your dashboard. These happen to be shortcuts into the system. So I can open up a customer, I can open up a quote, open up a PO. A little further down, you can see some graphical representations of data. If I go over to my finance area, I've got list views of information as well. So you have a lot of options in order to manipulate these dashboards for whatever role you have within the organization. Now, my role here is I perform the demos, right? I introduce people to Epicor, so I generally do quote to cash. So I do a customer, I do a quote, I convert to an order. So I've already optimized it for my role in this organization. And you can do the same. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll find a pull-down menu where we can edit. And pulling out from the right, you'll see a list of different objects that you can add to your dashboards. And I can't get into all of this today, but just some of the most common ones, like if you want to put an entry screen or maybe a report that you use every day, that would be what we call an app link. If you're looking at any of these objects, these graphical, colorful objects, that's generally either Discovery Chart or Discovery Dashboard. That list, if you see a list like a BAQ query list of records, you can add those as well. And there's just a number of different options here that you can use to manipulate these forms so that they're optimized for what you need from them. And again, if you just need to manipulate it, you can just drag and drop and move anything around. Let's say I want to add, I don't know, let's add another app link here. And we'll leave this one in green. And let's say I'm looking for, what should I look for here. Let's say call CRM call entry. It'll filter down and look for all of the instances where it sees that combination of characters. Go ahead and select. This is the name of the form in the system. This is the name that'll be displayed on your dashboard. So if you don't want that defined that way, you can just say, call entry. You can also choose different images. Notice I've got a little person here. I've got a shopping cart there. I have a hand with an arrow there. Those are just icons that I've downloaded from the internet and added them to my interface. You can just simply say OK at this point, and the system will add that icon to your dashboard. Go ahead and save that off. And now if I go and I choose, I can just simply press that and open up that record or that report inside the software. All right, so let me navigate now to a quote. I want to give you some idea of what's happened in the actual forms. So when you now open up a form in Epicor, you'll notice the tabs have been removed. It's now more of a scrolling, what we call cards. Every screen you'll open will have these two options, details and activity. And some of our modules do have tasks. Quotes happen to be an example of where we have tasks. So you may or may not see this tab. It just depends on what form you're opening. But when we're looking at our details, we have our navigation tree on the left. So that's very reminiscent of the older systems. And you can simply navigate through there and look at those particular details. Behind your activity tab, you're going to see related information. This happens to be a quote that I've moved all the way through to invoice. So there's the order that it created. There's the shipment that it went out on, the invoice that I sent out to the customer, and the payment that they provided to me. To get a better view, if I collapse these cards, you'll see the basic layout of the software. Now, in the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see all the tools and options that are normally present in that particular form. Everything's been moved around a little bit, but we can print our quote, we can attach our documents, we can add a call record, we can save our record, search for information, add another quote or add another record, also the memos. But most importantly, in my opinion, is this pull down here all the way to the right. You can see we have a lot of commands that are available for this particular screen. And where I want to take us today is down here to this personalization option. Sorry. Get back over there. I was trying to reduce that. Come on now. There we go. So as you can see, I've got opportunity, quote detail, lines, one-time ship, and miscellaneous. Those 4 cards have all been turned on. But you can see I've got others. And again, I've gone in here and I've removed parts of the screen that aren't applicable to things that I do. It's just an opportunity to optimize the system and remove a lot of noise that may be present with fields and forms that are not being used by the organization. If you want to turn a card on, just toggle the switch on and hit save, and the system will refresh, and you'll now have that card back on. So this is just simply taking it away from view. It's not manipulating the source code in any way. This was added to the system in an effort to just give our customers an opportunity or a tool that's easy to use where they can pare down the software where necessary so that their staff are only focused on the entry fields in the forms that are important to them and the information that you're trying to collect. Within a form, you're going to see the fields. And I have the ability to remove those as well. So I'm going to navigate back to that personalization form. In this case, I'm going to open up the opportunity quote detail, open up the body, and you can see they've sectioned these forms. So this is my quote section, this is customer info, this is bill to, and you'll see that this information flows with those sections as well. And as you notice, I have toggled off some of the fields that aren't used, that I don't use. I just clean up the screen, remove the things that I don't find valuable. But in this case, maybe I want to just turn them back on and save your record. And the system will then add that detail back into the screen. And again, no impact on your source code, no impact on your ability to upgrade. Just a nice feature that helps everyone just tune the system and optimize its interface. Let's see. I think at this point, I want to drill through to some of the line detail. So there's your grid view of data, and then there's the form. And again, more cards that you can add or remove as needed. So that's your basic navigation of the new form. If I go back to my home screen and let's go grab a job, or let's do a sales order. Let's go in flow. So just go ahead and drill through this grid into that underlying record. And we have the same layout. Notice this time I just have the two tabs. There's no tasks. We don't have tasks available on orders, but we do on quotes. So this is what your most common view looks like. You have activity detail, and then you have your actual order detail. And again, your cards have been displayed from top to bottom. You can add and remove those, as well as pare down any of the information within a card. Lastly, I want to kind of talk a little bit more about some of the screen manipulation. There are actually two tools available for these graphical objects. Epicor Data Discovery has been with the system, Sam, I'm not sure how long, it's been several years. This
yeah,
one
I think
here,
Epicor Data Discovery goes back probably at least to 10.2.500, I think, is when we started seeing that and it was an internally developed component versus what you're going to talk about next, James, the Grow tool.
Yes. So we've had this EDD for short, EDD for quite a few years. What Epicor has done is they've acquired another BI tool called Grow. And so as you can see, I mean, I can recognize it because I'm familiar with my my data, but it's a little bit different in its layout and its text and font and so forth. But what you'll do is you'll open up a tab and you'll navigate to your Grow website. And here, the basic flow is you connect your database to the tool, and then you can start to create any of these objects that you choose. You know, any combination of layouts, whether it's a line chart, bar chart, pie chart, you name it, it's available. So here's a few examples of what we have, and these are things that my team here at 2W have sort of put together for me. I've got a few on the AP side. I've got a few on the AR side. Just different variations. Users consume data in different ways. Some are graphical, some prefer lists. All of those are available to drive information to your dashboard in a real-time basis so that you understand what's going on with the organization as it's happening. They are updated automatically by the software. I think every couple of minutes or every 10 minutes. I'm not sure what the frequency is. I believe that's something we can set for you. But with those in place, as records are being entered and as orders are being shipped or invoices being paid, my dashboard is going to start to move and update with the day's activities. You do have drill through capabilities. So if you want to see the underlying data in the upper right corner of your object, you'll see this, it's a little box with an arrow, and it'll open up that EDD screen in its full form. And here, I can manipulate it. I can filter out certain customer groups. I say, I just want to look at my automotive people, or I just want to look at commercial. So you can manipulate your data, but you can also use this checkerboard type button, and you can look at the underlying records that it's found. Now, we don't have the ability to drill through this back into the ERP record itself like we do on that other screen, but it does display for you why these charts are displaying the information that they are, and you can interrogate the data from that point. I don't know what the future is for the data discovery and the Grow. I believe Grow is our go-forward tool. I believe that's the focus for Epicor, but both tools are available today, and you can quickly add them to your dashboard at any time. If you want to add a new tab, Edit, Add a tab, select OK. So you can see it's put a red box around this, so this is what it's highlighted on. I want to add a list. Let's say let's grab sales orders. So when you create these BAQs, you're basically telling the software which fields to return, and now those fields are available to your staff to choose from. So let's say I want the company, I want the site, and the order. Say OK. This one's asking me for some additional questions. This is probably not a good example to show for you folks, but you basically add your grid to your screen, choose the fields that you want to display, and then save it in the system. Let me pull that back off. So in this example, actually, I hit revert, so it didn't save that webinar tab at all, but it defaulted back to this particular tab here. You can see this is a grid. And so I have edit rights to those as well here. So anytime you find a grid display in the system, whether it's on one of the entry forms or whether it's on your dashboard, you can personalize these columns. And you can turn off fields that aren't applicable. I know a lot of times when I open up some of the standard screens in Epicor and the underlying grid below it is, you have to scroll from left to right for about 4 feet before you get through all the fields. All you need to do is simply turn off those fields, pare down the detail, into a nice, concise display of information. You can also add filters. If you notice here, it's got a funnel, so I can filter. Let me do this for just a second. I'm going to edit this one more time. I'm just going to stretch that out. So there, it's found, I don't know, about 17, it looks like 17 records. I guess call number 1 is missing. You can then filter, type in your part ID, customer ID, job ID, and it'll filter down those results. Some of that has been with the software for quite a long time. But again, you can have as many of these tabs as you choose for whatever functional area you're trying to manage. Let's see, how much time do I have? Sue, I'm at the 30-minute mark. Do you want us to pause at this point and go into Q&A?
It's up to you. If you have, about 5 more minutes of stuff, we can keep going. If not, then we can certainly transition.
I do. I have one more thing I want to show.
Go for it.
It's under my administration. Business activity queries. This is not new. This has been part of the system for quite a long time. This is the query itself. Go to this table, grab these records, and return them to me in this order. This is your BAQ library. The system comes with, I don't know, several hundred of these, I believe, right out of the box. And you can start new ones from scratch, or you can take an existing one and modify it any way you choose. I am a huge fan of always making copies. So I always have my original _JP, like this one here. That way I can go back to the original if I ever care to. And I do this quite frequently for different prospects that I'm trying to present the software to show them how easy it is to organize the information and then return it back to you as quickly and as easily as possible. Let's see, so part revisions. So I started from scratch. I grabbed and I created my own ID, and a developer told me years ago, never put spaces in your IDs, always do an underscore. So that's just a habit I have. And I told the system I'm sharing this across all users, so anyone who wants to grab hold of this and add it to their screen, they're welcome to do that. And I'm looking at all the companies in the software. And what we've done here is and we're going to get into the detail, but basically the system has written this query for me. Little background, my education is in accounting and finance. I'm not a computer scientist. I had virtually no understanding of how to write a query when I first started working in ERP. I have some skills now. I've been around a while, but still, when it comes to grabbing data, organizing it quickly, and driving it to my dashboard, having the software build these for me is a huge advantage, in my opinion. And so here it's just selecting the fields, and it's coming from these tables, and you can see I've joined several tables together. And what I did is I came over here. If I can shrink that, make that a little bit bigger. There we go. And I've tied some tables together. The system recognizes the key in each table and automatically joins them for you, so that when you go to display fields, I can pull down and choose information from any one of those 3 fields. Now, I happen to have grabbed quite a few on this one, but let's say I'm looking at the parts table and, I don't know, non-stock. I don't have that on my. Check the box, use your arrow keys to add it to your view. It generally adds it here at the bottom. And then if there's anything here that you don't care to see, maybe I don't want to see that. I'm not worried about that. Well, or that. And I use the opposite arrow and it pulls them off. You can also define how you want to sort these, by default, sort by part ID or part description, whatever that happens to be. So you can build views of information very quickly with the software and get that information back to your dashboard in a form similar to like this, shipments that have not been invoiced. Don't bring me all the shipments. This database has been around about 10 years. There's probably 1,000 or 2,000 demo shipments in it, but only 3 of them here have not been invoiced for yet. Here I've got receipts not invoiced. So just information presented to your staff, filtered on their behalf, sorted in an order that makes sense to them so that they understand what's happening and can act upon it as quickly as possible. That's pretty much all I have time today to share with everyone. Sue, I think at this point, if it's okay with you, we can kind of move into the Q&A side of the demo.
Yeah, definitely. So before we jump into some of the questions that were sent to me, Sam, I know you did a great job of paying attention to the meeting chat. There were a lot of questions that were dropped in there. No worries. I'm pretty sure Sam got to every single one with an answer. But I wanted to give Sam an opportunity to see if there's anything you need to expand on or you thought was maybe worth mentioning to the masses before we jumped into questions.
Well, I tried to provide concise answers in the chat while James was talking, so maybe we could make good use of the time. However, if you feel you'd like to hear more about those, please, either resubmit into the chat or contact Sue. I mean, I'll be glad to spend as much or as little time. I'm just kind of watching the clock here and saying we got like 15 or so minutes left. I want to respect everybody's time. So again, I was trying to be as concise but as direct as I could in those answers. Recording will be available afterwards. Correct, Sue?
Yes, definitely. My email is just sue@2wtech.com. You probably got a maybe webinar reminder from me. Just go ahead and drop me an email if you were one of the people that had a chat question and you want more color, or if you want the recording, please just drop me an email and I'll get you that as soon as it's available. Okay, we're going to jump into questions then. First one, can you use single sign-on with the browser-based UI?
Yes.
Okay.
And that single sign-on can be any of the single sign-on providers supported by the Epicor ERP. Namely, they come in 2 flavors. There's either Epicor Identity Provider, or IDP, is a Epicor managed authentication service, and also Azure Active Directory or Integrated Active Directory authentication is also supported. So if you need more detail on that, please reach out. But yes, all of the common authentication methods, and also to be clear, username and password, standard Epicor username and password authentication is also supported.
Great. Okay, next question. We will be upgrading to Kinetic soon, but we'll be using the on-premise version. How different are the views and ability to customize compared to the browser version?
So on-prem and cloud differ in no meaningful way I can think of. Like, if you're deploying on-prem, you have the ability to access your ERP through a browser. If you're deploying on-prem, obviously you have the ability to deploy and install the smart client and access either the Kinetic UI through the smart client or the classic UI through the smart client. However, this is probably a good opportunity to point out that if an individual user's day involves 100% Kinetic UI screens, generally the Kinetic UI and the user experience, responsiveness, screen lag, etc., is all much better in a direct browser access. So another way of saying what I'm saying is, if you're going to use the Kinetic UI, you should be accessing it through a browser. If there are still classic screens within the ERP that you need to access, your only choice is to use the smart client. However, and this is a new development that is part of Kinetic 2023.2 release, which again is general availability tomorrow for on-prem customers, and is in the process of being rolled out to Epicor public cloud customers as we speak. But Kinetic 2023.2 includes some new technology called Browser First. And basically what Browser First means is there is technology available in 2023.2 that allows a user accessing the ERP through a browser to access both classic and Kinetic browser screens. So again, 2023.2, the latest release, is going to actually make it easier for a user to use a browser primarily, but revert to a classic screen without needing to launch a separate session through the smart client.
Great. Sam, I know we touched on this right at the beginning, but we did have a question come in about how long do we have before the classic is not an option? Do you want to address that again?
Magic question. So nobody knows, or the people that know aren't saying. That being said, and I see Kim Doty in the chat mentioned 2024.1 for removal of Epicor.exe is what I heard rumored. And again, there's lots of rumors around this, but Epicor's publicly stated policy on this is there is not a published end date for the smart client. However, beginning with 2024.1, the classic UI will not be updated with new features that are introduced. In other words, from 2024.1, the spring release forward, if Epicor introduces a new feature, and that feature, let's say, requires a new button or thing on the action menu within, let's just say, sales order entry, Epicor is not going back to the classic UI and adding that feature into the classic UI. If you want to use that feature, your only choice is to do it through the Kinetic UI. That is officially stated by Epicor. As far as when classic UI and the smart client goes away entirely, that's somewhat ambiguous for planning purposes. And again, this is not Epicor's statement. This is Sam's opinion. You got about 18 months to 2 years here before it's just not an option.
All right, there are a couple more questions dropped in chat here, so let's just go through them real quick. What is the difference between WVD, that's Windows Virtual Desktop Access, and this browser access?
So WVD access, in that case, your end compute device, whatever that might be, could be an iPad, could be a smartphone, could be another Windows PC, is accessing an instance of Windows running on a cloud computer. That cloud computer is running a multi-user version of Windows 10 or Windows 11. And on that cloud computer, there is an instance of Epicor.exe, the Epicor Smart Client installed. So you're technically running the Smart Client, you just aren't running it locally in AVD or Azure Virtual Desktop. By the way, this is essentially the same technology as we've had for 10 plus years, probably going on 15. We had Windows Terminal Server, Windows Remote Desktop Services, and now Azure Virtual Desktop. Those are all iterations of remote desktop technology, essentially. And so they're not the same. In this, when we're talking true browser-based access, you're launching a web browser, Chrome, Safari, Edge, whatever, on your local compute device, iPad, Windows PC, Mac, and you're directly accessing a web application, which is what the Kinetic UI is today. It's a web application that executes under Microsoft IIS or Internet Information Services. So they're not the same.
Okay. We're on public cloud government version. Are there any issues with accessing Kinetic? We're on hold with Kinetic conversion due to an EDI implementation.
I see the question, and there are none that I'm aware of.
Okay. A couple more, so we'll try to get through them quickly. How hard is it to convert a classic screen customization to work with the Kinetic UI?
Highly variable. And I say that because, so for example, and those of you out there that are a little bit more technical may be familiar with a tool that is available to you from Epicor called the Upgrade Analyzer. And by the way, the Upgrade Analyzer is available to all Epicor customers, especially folks that are on-prem, folks that are running an older release of the ERP, you know, down to, I think almost all the 10 and even 9 level ERPs are supported. The Upgrade Analyzer may even go back a little bit further than that, but the bottom line is the Upgrade Analyzer will identify all of the screen customizations present in your database, and it will make some analytical recommendations on those based on their relative compatibility with the Kinetic UI. And so there will be what I'll call cosmetic customizations that have almost no issue with direct upgrade to the Kinetic UI. At the other end of the spectrum, if you have a highly customized version, let's say of sales order entry, with thousands of lines, perhaps of VB code, which was a supported language for client-side customizations not too long ago, that's 100% rework to get that to work in Kinetic. So when I say your results will vary, it's literally everything from push a button to spend many hours. And oh, Tracy, I see you mentioned in the chat, how do you get the Upgrade Analyzer? Contact your Epicor CAM. And if that's us, just call us.
Okay, you touched on customizations a little bit, but we're going to go ahead with this question. We have some customizations to forms and also dashboards in our current version. We're planning to upgrade to Kinetics. Are those customizations going to still be available, or do we have to redo those?
So again, Kinetic, even Kinetic 2023.1, and for that matter, Kinetic 2024.1, which is the spring release of 2024, will still support the Epicor Smart Client. If you run the Smart Client, you can still run the classic UI. And any customization that was built for the classic UI will continue to run on new releases. And you know, there's one small asterisk there, and that small asterisk is if Epicor has changed the underlying data structure of the primary business object. In other words, they moved some fields on the sales order data set from the header to the detail, or from the detail to the release, or maybe they put a whole new table in there for sales tax, or whatever thing they do in the future. If that customization is affected by changes in the underlying data model, you're still going to have to fix it to make it work with the fact that the underlying data model has changed. However, generally speaking, it has been our experience, and you know, I'm going to qualify this very closely. So folks that are on a 10.2 release, like 10.2 500, 600, or 700, and have well-behaving customizations in the classic UI, are generally able to upgrade directly to any release of Kinetic, later the better, and have zero or minimal issues with their customizations functioning in the classic UI. Again, I didn't say that we automatically jump to the Kinetic UI there. Again, what I'm saying is a classic UI from 10.2 700, chances are is going to work just fine in Kinetic 2023.1 classic UI.
Okay, a couple more quick ones, hopefully, Sam. Is everything, all the modules now converted to Kinetic UI?
There are 3 specific screens, not even modules, that I am personally aware of that are not available even in Kinetic 2023.2 Kinetic UI. And I believe it is function maintenance. So if you're a dev, you got to use the Smart Client to create or edit functions. If you don't know what functions are, you probably don't need to worry about it. BPM method and data directive maintenance, those 2 screens are also not available in Kinetic UI. So if you're a dev that writes BPMs, you will need to use the classic UI to maintain those. However, those BPMs will work just fine for a Kinetic UI user. Again, this is dev only stuff. And then the last area is if you're using Epicor advanced print routing and breaking rules, the maintenance of advanced print routing and breaking rules is only possible in the classic UI. So again, they will function just fine. If you have a routing and breaking rule to convert AR invoices to PDFs and email those to the primary purchasing contact, it'll work just fine in Kinetic UI. What you can't do in Kinetic UI is go modify that routing and breaking workflow. The dev responsible for that will have to revert back to classic UI to do that.
We're going to end on Jason's question. I apologize for anybody else that had questions. Please email them to me, or we've got some contact information up on the screen. So again, last question that we're going to take for today. What is a good recommendation for users who are extremely stubborn with the classic UI to just start looking at the new Kinetic before it's forced on them? Because I feel like this is probably going to be a popular issue a lot of people are going to have.
I think that's a great way to end this. So like what's 2W's advice for helping you to start making this transition? And I think every organization, regardless of whether you have 10 or 200 Epicor users in your organization, you have varying degrees of tolerance for change, and in fact, ambitiousness for change. Find those people within your organization across disciplines, whether it's customer service or sales or production planning or purchasing or accounting, whoever it is, and let those folks be your internal evangelists. Turn on Kinetic UI for those users. Let them experience it. Let them experiment with it. And then as they start seeing success, they can bring others along with them. Because again, the choice of Kinetic or Classic UI is individual by individual, screen by screen. And you can always revert back. Like if I say, okay, I'm feeling brave today, I'm going to do all my sales orders through the Kinetic UI, and I get to 10 o'clock in the morning and my brain is about to explode, I just simply go back to the Classic UI. It's, I can pick and choose all day long.
Perfect. Great. Thank you, everybody. A lot of questions, a lot of really good questions. Again, our contact information is up there, so please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Thanks again. Join us next time.